On this week's live stream, we're celebrating one of the world's most beloved artists by transforming his work using an amazing interactive painting technique. Plus, we give you a new perspective on parallax, a simulated 3D technique you can use in your games. And we show you how to create creepy darkness in your Scratch projects. All this and more coming right up on the Chromeworks live stream. Good morning, Internet. It's Mr. Tomec back again, and I'm joined by a friend over here. This is my friend Vince. Deck, I'm sure you know who he is. I'm joined by Deck in the studio here. Deck, who is this, buddy? So who is it?
Vincent Van Gogh. Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah, famed artist Vincent Van Gogh. Bing, 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 points to Deck. So, Vincent Van Gogh, the founder of he came in kind of the end of the Impressionist movement. He's considered a post-Impressionist, and he was one of the artists who helped kind of get us out of that fusty old era when everything was realistic in painting and started to paint more with their feelings, you know. And anyway, Van Gogh is important today because, well, he died on July 29th, 1890 at age 37. And last week I started thinking about Van Gogh because on the live stream last week, I showed you a really, really cool art technique that was in a featured Scratch project by a fellow by the name of Hexescape. And it just used a virtual paintbrush to constantly be painting new images in a style that looked a lot like the Impressionists. And so that got me thinking about Van Gogh, and especially about Van Gogh's most famous painting, Starry Night, or The Starry Night is actually what it's called, which he actually painted when he was in an insane asylum after cutting his ear off. Long story, anyway, but fascinating figure, Van Gogh. Anyway, so we have this engine in Scratch that really, really works nicely to create work that looks a lot like Impressionist paintings. And in a little bit, I'm going to be showing you how we took that art technique that we learned about last week and applied it to Starry Night and created a Van Gogh style painting that's interactive in Scratch, and it's super cool. And I think you saw it in the preview anyway. We'll get to that in a minute, though. So we are, as I said, joined by Deck the Decoder in England, and we're also joined by Zoraez, who is the founder of the Ilmopedia Academy in England as well. He's a young educator who's trying to do his own YouTube education series as well. So check out his YouTube channel, Ilmopedia Academy, if you get a chance. I don't see anyone else in the chat. If you are lurking and would like to say hello or get a shout out from Mr. T, please give me a shout, guys. Just drop your name in the text and maybe tell me where you come from, and I'll be happy to give you a shout out on the stream. Okay, I thought we'd do a couple of little things. I'm going to be showing you the tutorial video that my co-op students came up with this week. As usual, we're going to be publishing this later on next week as a full-scale tutorial. This is sort of a draft version, and anyone who watches my live stream can kind of get a sneak preview of where we're going with our future projects. And so this will be kind of the world premiere of that. We'll do a few more tweaks, though. I've noticed a few things I want to edit, but yeah, you'll be able to get the first look at this really cool tutorial. We've been working hard on our tutorials in the last couple of weeks, and I think we've done some really fabulous work. Michael, my video editor, who's doing all my work for me, my post-production work for me, is a fantastic video editor. So he's really helped me to up my video game. I think you guys will be impressed by what you see. Let's get started with something else just really quickly, though. So you guys know that I was teaching summer camp I've been teaching summer camp all summer, and this week I had another new crew of campers in, and we had a fabulous time coding and filming movies and doing stop motions and stuff. I wanted to show you a whole bunch of my students were working on platformers this week. Rather than come up with our own platformer code, we borrowed Griff Patch's fantastic platformer code, which I really strongly recommend any of you guys who are interested in platforming have a look at. It's really, there's no use reinventing the wheel when Griff Patch has already written the definitive code for platformers anyway. But it's a model that's really, really easy to emulate which is nice because once you get the engine in place, you can start creating levels like crazy just by drawing in the background sprite, and that's what I love about this type of platformer placement. So with this particular game that I'm showing here by a camper by the name of Zane. A shout out to Zane if he's watching right now, by the way. Please say hello if you're around. You can see that that Zane has, on the left here, just created a whole bunch of different costumes just by drawing them in the editor. And whatever it is you draw in the editor becomes a platform that your characters can walk around in, which is really, really cool. Like, for example, if I take this platform here and copy it and paste it to a new position and then drop my guy here, you'll see that it becomes a platform in the game. So you can draw as many of your own platforms as you want to in this project. You can see we have an exit that's green here. This is a lovely little platformer that Zane created here, and I just wanted to show you a little bit of how it operates. There's some really nice, let me put the audio on here. There's some really nice level design here that involves some tricky moves to get up levels. Like this one, for example, I'm struggling with just a little bit. All right, then we have to jump across here, and how on earth you get that coin, I don't know. Now, one of the things I love about this particular game is I'm going to jump to level 7. We have a little cheat code here. I won't share it with you, but I'm going to jump to level 7. And so one of the lovely features he's added here is this dark mode, which is very, very cool, which makes it so you can't actually see where you're jumping. And that means that you have to take a couple of leaps of faith as you're jumping across here. For example, if I try to walk across this platform here, I end up falling, and if you walk off of this one here, you end up in the spikes, but I probably shouldn't be doing that. Let me show you the exit here. Another really nice touch that he added here at the exit. I'll show that to you right now. Hope I didn't alarm you guys. Yeah, so a really cool little jump scare there. I love that. So there's a couple of other neat new features that Zane added to this platformer. It's not quite ready for prime time, so I can't actually release it to you. He didn't share it with me either, so I'm playing it on Turbo Warp. I don't know if you guys are aware that you can, at least for now, play unshared projects on Turbo Warp. If you have the address of a project and it's coming up as Scratch is scratching its head because the program hasn't been shared, you can actually load it up in Turbo Warp and get a peek at what's being worked on. It's a really nice little feature, but the people at Turbo Warp are warning us that it might not last forever because Scratch is updating its code, I believe, with a view towards making this impossible, so that these files can't be viewed outside of Turbo Warp. Anyway, let me show you one more level from Zane's game. He's come up with kind of a boss battle. He's still in the middle of it, but I wanted to give you guys a preview because I think it's really cool what he's done here. So we'll go jump to level 14 here, or let me just restart the game and jump to level 14. And I don't know if I can get to the ending here. I think I'm just going to drag my... Okay, I'm going to try and actually navigate to the ending here because the black screen is kind of getting in the way of my... So how do I get out of here? I don't even know what the method is to get out of this level. Oh, there is a thing here. Okay, just a sec. I think we're almost there. Here we go. So here's the exit, and then we get into this really cool transition sequence that leads into a boss battle. Very cool, eh? Anyway, I'm going to mute the audio on this for now. Let me just turn that down. All right. Anyway, but what I wanted to show you, so he's not quite done coding it yet. The boss doesn't actually do anything, but he started to code these really cool spikes that come out of the ground. Watch what happens when I trigger this. We get a little warning signal, and then these spikes come up, and if you're in the way of them, you die right away. So that is a really, really cool feature that he's added. Anyhow, a lovely platformer and a really cool idea of what you can do just taking GriffPatch's platformer model and starting to add little pieces to it. Zane spent quite a bit this week just kind of going into this project and pulling apart little pieces and adding new ones, and ended up making something really fabulous. So congratulations to Zane for that. Excellent. One other thing I wanted to get to before we get to our main event today is I don't know if it's new or not, but Scratch add-ons, my favorite plugin for Google Chrome, has a feature that I was not aware of until just now, and I wanted to show it to you because it is so darn cool. One of the big frustrations I have coding in Scratch is when I'm trying to get a block like this out of a stack. So if I want to take this middle one and pull it out, I have to pull this loose and then pull it loose from this one and then remove it and then pull this back again. Whereas inserting is super easy. Just go like that, put it in there and get rid of it. So there is a Scratch add-ons option here that lets you just hold down the control key and pull out a block right out. So without control key, with control key. What a fantastic little feature. So you guys will remember that Scratch add-ons is available at scratchaddons.com, and it's super easy to install. It's totally safe. It's open source. There's no viruses or anything scary in there. Everyone, please trust me, the people who are in this are very dedicated fans of the Scratch community, and they've made a fantastic project here that just keeps growing. Every week I see new features being added to it. So big shout out to Scratch add-ons. Once you get into Scratch add-ons, you'll want to actually I want to show you, so we have a little menu here that shows up in the extensions menu, but this doesn't give you all of the add-ons. To get into all of them, you have to click on this little factory settings icon, and that will bring you to this web page where there's all kinds of different settings, hundreds of different things that you can tweak to change the look and feel of Scratch. The one I wanted to talk about today is this one right here that's called Grab Single Block with Control Key. So if you turn that on, you'll get access to this neat function that I wanted to show you today. Anyone else in the chat here? If you're hanging out, please do say hello. It doesn't look like we have a lot of viewership. Nothing new here. Okay, so let's get on to the Starry Night thing, guys. As I said, so I did show you guys the original project last week by Hexascape, and you can check out last week's live stream for that. So here is a Scratch rendition of the Starry Night painting. It's not 100% there, but it's kind of simplified, and that really works out for the tracing technique that we're going to be showing you today. Actually, yeah, so let me run the project for you right now, and I'll just give you a little preview of what's happening here. So you see we've taken the Starry Night painting and turned it into this beautiful interactive painting here. Let me turn the audio back on again. We've got Don McLean's Vincent, which is a song about Vincent van Gogh, playing in the background, which I think you'll be able to hear now. And yeah, really lovely. I just love this visual effect, and I want to show you later some of the ways that you can adapt this to your own project. It's super easy to make a project like this of your own in Scratch with almost any image that you want to. And I just love the way we're using the parallax view here to give it to change the perspective, almost as though we're inside a painting and we can move our perspective around and look at it. Just beautiful. So my co-op students, I asked them to put together a little tutorial on how to do this, and they've done a fantastic job. I think this is one of our best tutorial videos yet. As I said, it's not quite ready for prime time. We're going to do a few more tweaks after the long weekend. It is a long weekend here in Canada, but after that, we're gonna publish this next week. But if you want to have a look at it, here we go right now. The Starry Night, painted in 1889 by famed artist Vincent van Gogh, is one of the most recognizable paintings in the world. In today's Scratch lesson, I'm going to teach you a cool and amazingly simple technique that will let you bring this painting to life with real-time paint strokes and a 3D-like perspective that shifts as you use your mouse. Best of all, you can apply this technique to almost any image in Scratch to create your own interactive impressionist painting. Big thanks to Scratch user at Hexascape, who coded the featured Scratch project that inspired this tutorial. Let's get started. So parallax is a technique for creating the illusion of 3D in a two-dimensional image by moving the different layers of the image at different speeds. Parallax is used to great effect in the iconic Sonic the Hedgehog series, where the programmers use it to create the impression that the camera is moving around to follow Sonic as he leaps and slides up and down the screen. In Scratch, you can create a parallax effect by drawing a multi-layered landscape, like this one, and doing a little bit of math so that each layer follows your mouse cursor around at a different speed. Each layer is assigned a different parallax value. The higher the value, the farther the object is away from the camera, and so the less it will appear to move. So let's get going on our Van Gogh project. We've supplied you with a starter file that has a rough Scratch drawing of the original Starry Night image, separated into layers so you can move each part separately. You can find a link in the description. This technique will work with almost any simple landscape image, so if you want to try drawing your own image, be my guest. Just be sure to add lots of layers so we can slide them around with code. You'll want to set each sprite up so its XY coordinates are 0, 0 right in the middle of the screen. Now move each object around in the image editor so it's properly positioned. Our Starry Night image is made up of 8 smaller pieces. The sky, which is the back layer, the ground, which is one layer above that, and then the clouds, the stars, the town, the church, the hill, and finally the tree. We're going to position each of these layers in front of the one before it. Let's start with the sky. When the green flag is clicked, we'll use a Go To block to position it in the middle of the screen. Then move it to the back layer. For the next layer up, the ground, we'll use the same code, but we'll tell the sprite to go forward 1 layer. Now do the same for the cloud, but move it forward 2 layers. The star goes forward 3 layers. The town goes 4 layers. The church is 5. The hill is 6. And the tree is 7. Now let's set up the parallax. Create a new variable called parallax and make sure to click the For This Sprite Only checkbox so that each sprite can have its own parallax value. Now add a set variable block to each sprite. We'll set parallax to 4 for the sky, 5 for the ground, 6 for the cloud, 8 for the stars, 8 for the town, 10 for the church, 12 for the hill, and 16 for the tree. Remember that the higher the parallax value, the closer the object is to the camera, and the less it will move when you change your camera position. Here's how we're going to make that happen. Place a forever loop at the bottom of each block of code, and inside it put a Go To block. Let's make the X position of our sprite match the X location of our mouse by dragging in a mouse X and mouse Y bubble from our sensing blocks. Our sprite is now glued to the mouse cursor, which isn't exactly what we want. Next, we'll offset the position of the sprite by dividing its position by our parallax value. Here's how the math works. My sky has a parallax value of 4. So if I move my mouse from the center of the screen to an X value of 100, my sprite will move 100 divided by 4, which is 25 pixels to the right. But the church, which has a parallax value of 10, will only move 10 pixels, 100 divided by 10. Once you add this parallax formula to all your sprites, you'll see that the background sprites move a little more quickly than the foreground sprites. If you squint the right way, you might almost believe it's a 3D image. Now that we've finished the parallax, it's time to add the amazing real-time painting effect we showed you in the preview. We're going to need the pen tool, an optional component you can add to Scratch via the extensions menu at the bottom right of the screen. Once that's loaded, click on the sprite called cursor that we gave you in the starter file. All it contains is a tiny little white circle that we'll be using to place our paint strokes. What we're going to do in the code is very quickly draw a series of short paint strokes under this sprite, moving the dot around as fast as Scratch possibly can run so we fill up the screen with paint. While we're setting up our digital paintbrush, let's hide the Starry Night sprites so we can see our paint against a plain white screen. Let's start coding with a green flag and a forever loop. Inside, we're going to tell our cursor sprite to go to a random position on the screen and then put our pen down on the page to start drawing. We want our paint strokes to appear as though they're circling around our mouse cursor. We'll do that by telling them to point right at our mouse position and then turn 90 degrees to the right. Now tell your cursor sprite to move 10 pixels to generate the paint stroke. Lift your pen up again so you can reposition it to be ready to draw the next stroke. Let's click the green flag and see what we made. Okay, we're making lovely paint strokes now, but not nearly enough of them. Scratch has an internal speed limit that only lets it draw 30 paint strokes a second. But depending on the speed of your computer, we can make the script run a lot faster. In the original Scratch project that inspired this tutorial, Scratch user Hexescape solved this problem using Turbo Mode, a special Scratch mode that unlocks the frame rate of your projects. I'm not a huge fan of Turbo Mode, mostly because a lot of new Scratchers have no idea what it is and will probably just assume your project is broken because it draws so slowly. It won't be in our finished project, but let's try out Turbo Mode anyhow. In the Edit menu, select the menu item that says Turn on Turbo Mode and click the green flag. Well, our paint strokes are being generated a lot faster now. Okay, our screen is full of paint now, so let's add an Erase All block at the top of our code to clear our canvas. Next, we're going to add some subtle changes to the look of our paintbrush so our brush strokes don't all look the same. Go to your pen tools and select a block that says Change Pen Color by a Number, and insert that block right before the Pen Down command. Grab a Pick Random block from the green operated blocks and insert it into the bubble to replace the pen color value with a random number between -7 and 7. This will make each pen stroke slightly different from the others. If we hit the green flag now, you'll see a rainbow of colors because the colors are changing randomly each time we go around a loop. Let's try setting a pen color before we start randomizing. I'll pick a dark blue pen and insert it just before we change the pen color. So now we're seeing subtle changes in the color, and you can see that things are starting to look a little bit more like a painting. Let's make a few more subtle changes. Add another Change Pen Color block, but grab the pull-down menu and change the word color to saturation. Saturation means how rich the colors in your photo are. Let's make the saturation value change randomly between values of -10 and +10. Add another Change Color block and switch it so it says brightness. Randomize that value to -10 and +10 again. Finally, let's grab a Set Pen Size block and make it a random value between 2 and 5. Okay, let's hit the green flag and see how our image has changed. Cool! Okay, so now that our painting engine is complete, we can start tracing over our Starry Night images and creating our interactive painting. We're going to control the tracing effect by having our pen change color each time it collides with a different background sprite. First of all, we need to unhide all our sprites. We don't actually want to see these images, but the problem is that Scratch can't detect whether a sprite is colliding with an object when it's invisible. Let's hide these sprites a different way now by setting their ghost effect to 100. Grab one of the purple look blocks that says Set Color Effect, and from the pull-down menu, select Ghost, and then enter 100. We'll want to do the same thing to our cursor sprite to hide our guide dot. Inside your cursor code, grab all the code inside your forever loop except for the Go to Random Position block, and set it aside while we insert some extra code. We're going to set up a series of 8 if-else loops here, each one detecting a different sprite and setting a unique brush color when the cursor moves over that sprite. We'll start with the sprite closest to the front, the tree. Grab an if touching block from your light blue sensing blocks and place it on top of the if statement. If touching tree, we're going to set the pen color to black. Now duplicate your if-else statement and place it inside the first else condition. Change the sensing block so it says hill and set the color of the hill to match the dominant color in the hill sprite. Just click the colored swatch in the pen color block, click the little eyedropper at the bottom of the colors menu, and click on the dominant color in the sprite. You can always tweak these colors later if you're not happy with the finished product. Okay, let's do the same thing for the next 6 sprites, each time placing your new if-else statement inside the else statement for the sprite before it. Next, you'll want to do the church, the town, the stars, the clouds, the ground, and finally the sky. Now place the pen blocks that you set aside a few minutes ago back into the code stack, inside the forever loop, but at the very bottom. Let's click the green flag and wow, check this out. Beautiful. We finished our project, but if you want to stay tuned for an extra couple of minutes, I want to show you an advanced technique we can use to run this project without launching turbo mode. Let's create a new custom block called Turbo. In the settings for our new block, make sure to click the checkbox marked Run Without Screen Refresh. This basically forces Scratch into turbo mode by running all the code attached to this block without refreshing the screen. On your screen, you'll see a big red block called Define Turbo. Underneath that block, add a numbered loop and set it to repeat 1,000 times. If your computer is fast enough, this will get you drawing as many as 1,000 brush strokes for every frame of animation. If you do have an older computer though, you might find that the code works more smoothly with a smaller number. In our testing, we went all the way down to 300 and got fairly decent results. Now inside this repeat block, place all the code that used to be inside your forever loop. Now place your new custom turbo block, the little red block, inside your empty forever loop. Theoretically, this should be working now, but we encountered a weird bug while coding this project that slowed down the drawing rate so much that it was unusable. After a lot of trial and error, we came up with a solution that makes absolutely no sense at all, but it seems to work every time. Just above the forever loop, add a say block and set it to say something. We wrote the word start for 0 seconds. Suddenly our project is working again. If anyone out there in Scratch land can explain why, we'd love to hear it, but we're totally stumped over here. I hope you enjoyed that project, and we're excited to see what kinds of amazing impressionist artworks you create using this method. Thanks again to Hexescape for the code, and thanks also to Scratch user TapDancer707, whose Starry Night Scratch graphic we remixed and modified to create our sprites. If you make something cool with this technique, please share it with me. I'm Mr. Tomec on Scratch. If we really like what you did, we'll feature it on one of our weekend live streams, which air Saturdays on YouTube. See you next time. The story. Oh, sorry, we looped that. All right, so I don't know what you guys thought about that. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed that video. I thought it was just a really interesting project, and one that I was saying in the chat that I'm hoping art teachers will take up with their students. I think this would be a really excellent lesson for kids grade 5, 6, 7, 8, even into high school for a coding/art tutorial. So just putting a bug in teachers' ears there. So what about that weird coding issue that I showed you in there? I'm not quite sure what that's all about. I'm going to show it to you one more time again here, though, because I just cannot understand what's going on with this. So so here's my project. It's running beautifully. Actually, it will run even not in turbo mode. Let me turn turbo mode off. By the way, you can quickly get in and out of turbo mode by hitting the Shift key and then clicking the green flag, and that will switch it on and off. Bet you didn't know that. So here's our project. Yeah, we're not in turbo mode. It's working beautifully here until I remove this useless block, the start for 0 seconds block. That's the only change I'm going to make to this. And suddenly, Well, sometimes it works. Well, let's try that again. See, it's like it's just not working. And after a while, it seems like it starts to rev up and then finally gets going. And maybe after running for a few seconds, no, it doesn't look like this one's going at all. And so I have no idea what that's all about. Let me just show you, just for the sake of argument here. I'm going to put that say block back in again, and then poof, it's working again. This is one of the strangest scratch mistakes I've seen in a long time, other than weird multiplayer bugs, which I talked about a couple of months ago as well, which is something else that's troubling me. Okay, so I wanted to go into dive a little deeper on some of the concepts that we covered here. As I said, we absolutely can adapt this to almost any project that you want to. So right here I have is this the right version? Yeah, here it is. I have a little scratch project that I've drawn here just to illustrate this parallax concept a little bit further. So again, we're talking about the only thing we're doing is going constantly to our mouse to get this parallax going, and then just dividing the mouse position by this parallax value, whatever the value is. And as long as everything's layered properly, you get this really cool 3D effect. I wanted to show you how changing the parallax value changes the movement of these objects. So you can see that if you look at the sun and the clouds, they're both moving independently. If I start my mouse cursor over on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see that the cloud is maybe 1/4 of the cloud is on top of the sun right now. And if I move my mouse all the way over to the left-hand side here, you see that maybe 60% of the cloud, or maybe half of the cloud, is on top of the sun now. So we can actually slide it back and forth to get the sun to peek out from behind the clouds. Now I'm going to change one of the parallax values. Let's change the parallax value in the sun here. Let's change it way down, or down to 1, which will bring it to the foreground here. And let's restart the program, and look what's happening here. Our sun is moving totally from one side to the other. And as I said, the higher that value is, the slower your object will move. So let's try 20 here. And I'll have to restart the project again. And now you can see the sun is barely moving at all, which is probably a more realistic kind of parallax view for sure. You want the stuff in the sky to not move very much at all. So I would probably want to put the clouds up to a higher number here as well, perhaps 18. Let's see what that looks like. And so yeah, we've got something here that's moving very subtly in the background and much more dramatically in the foreground. Parallax is super cool, man. Anyway, and surprisingly easy to implement. So I would love to see that done in some more of your projects, particularly platformers. I think it's a really useful technique for platformers. So what does this project look like if we add the funky Van Gogh effect to it? I've just redone the same project here, except we've added the cursor sprite that I showed you last time. And let's just run this quickly just to show you how we can adapt a simple scratch project like this to work with this new engine. And again, it's looking a lot like a Van Gogh painting. Really lovely, huh? All right. So what else do we have for you today? Well, I had forgotten when I was showing you guys the platformer project that one of the main reasons I wanted to show you the platformer was to show you how we got that darkness effect going in our code. If you jump in this project to level like 10, for example, you'll see that everything's in the dark. How did he go about making that? I just wanted to give you guys a quick little introduction to that. If you guys have been with me for a long time, I did cover this in my robot top-down shooter tutorial about a year and a half ago, but it's worth going over again because it's a frequently asked question. Like when kids see this effect, they often want to duplicate it themselves. So how do we do that? It's not that tricky, really. All you have to, it's mostly in the drawing. So what we have here is a simple project. You can see that there's a whole bunch of layers to it, but the middle layer is the most important one. This is the actual transparency. So all I've done is I've drawn a square here. I filled it with a circular gradient. And so the circular gradient goes from transparent on the left to black on the right. And that basically gives you a square that has a hole in the cut out of the middle of it, a nice soft hole, almost like a flashlight shining on it. Don't do it the other way around, by the way, because it will not work if you try and do something like, oh, I've got my transparency gone here. So if you do something like this, where the transparency is going on the outside, then that won't work, of course. So make sure that your transparency is on the left and that your object's on the right. Now we can't cover this square up with one big block because it will cover our transparency up. And even if we move it to the back, it will still be covering up our transparency. So the only thing we can do here is draw around the edges of the object by drawing 4 different rectangles that just cover up all of the edges. And from there, theoretically, there's one more bug here that I'm going to show you in a second, but theoretically we should be able to just put in a little bit of code here, and let me show you what the code looks like. All the code is a forever loop that says go to cat. So as soon as I make this visible, you can see that we are on top of the cat. Let me start running the program here, and as I move the cat around, you'll see that this mask layer just covers up the everything in the object that's not in the middle of that little circle, and it looks really beautiful. Now this looks especially beautiful because I've expanded the size of this project. Let me disconnect this here. So normally the problem with this kind of project, and when you try it at home, you're going to see something like this happening if you're not careful. So let's move around. You can see that I don't have my entire image there. Well, we could try and fix that in the costumes menu here by making this as big as possible, but there are limits to how big Scratch will let us draw an object like this. So let me just expand it out as much as I possibly can. And on every side here, it's not letting us get any wider here than the bottom of the screen. And so again, as we move around in this project, you're going to see some weird glitches and things. What we have to do is make this dot bigger, but Scratch won't let us. If I try to change this to 100%, for example, you can see that Scratch immediately sends it back down to 50. My screen magnifier is turned off. Let me see if I can get it back on again quickly for you guys. All right, I think we're good now. Yeah, so you can see that my size here is 50%, and no matter what I try to enter for the number, let's try adding 100, it won't. Scratch has its own ideas about how big it can expand stuff, and it hates when you try to expand stuff beyond the screen. I say it hates it because it doesn't actually stop you from doing it, it just tries to stop you from doing it. If you're smart enough, you can get a workaround around it. And the way to do that is using a really clever Scratch hack that I've shown you in other tutorials. And that is basically to switch to a different costume of the same object. Here's one called empty that has nothing in it. And once you're in this, you can change your size to whatever you want. So let me make this this visible. And there's nothing to see because it's transparent right now. But if now that we're invisible, I can change the size to whatever I want, like 2,000, for example. You see, we've got this huge number in here. And now we pull a little switcheroo. We go back to the costume again, and we're still at 2,000 for some reason. And now we can actually run our project the way that it's intended to run, and everything works beautifully. Now, I'm not sure why. Okay, hold it. I'm not sure why this isn't visible now. Did I hide the project? I didn't hide the project. Did I do a ghost effect? What did I do? Is it in the wrong layer order? Is there a ghost effect? All right, let's try this out again. Oh, you know what I've done? I've made it so big that the transparency actually covers the entire screen. So this is a problem. So let's change the size back to something a little more reasonable here. So I'm going to grab this size hack block, and it's basically a customized version of this hack that I showed you here. Feel free to borrow this code if you like. And let's have this go to 200% instead. So we'll click the green flag. There we go. Yeah, so I just kept expanding that block. Let me show you what it looks like at 400. And you can see the circle in the middle gets bigger and bigger. And once it gets big enough to like 1,000, then you can't see anything but the inside of the hole, and that's what was confusing me there. So we were actually seeing everything with just a little vignette around the edges. So go as big as you need to, and get a nice shape going here. And now we can quite nicely get this flashlight effect going here. If you want it to be only a partial flashlight effect, like you can still see a little bit of the background, what I would suggest is just add a little bit of ghost effect to this layer, like maybe set ghost effect to 80, for example. Oh, no, to 20. Sorry, the other way around. We want a smaller number. There we go. And so now you can see a little bit of the background, which I think is a more realistic effect here. A little bit more like you're in a dark room and there's light spilling out so you can see the rest of it as well. Anyway, I think that's a super cool effect, and there's all kinds of ways you can use that. So all of these techniques I'm showing you can be used in combination with each other as well. You could have a game with parallax and a flashlight view like this if you were doing a really cool platformer that had different aspects to it. I could imagine doing something in a dark and creepy forest, for example, where this kind of stuff was where you were moving around with a flashlight trying to see what was going on, and as you went up higher, you saw different angles, maybe revealing something down below, like maybe lava or something that's invisible when you're on the ground, but that suddenly becomes visible from below. I think that would be a really cool idea for a game, but that's just me. Okay, guys, so we're getting close to the end here. I had one last little thing to show you, and so I try to do a video project with my students every week, and this week we decided to do some impossible sports shots. So we couldn't find a football fast enough, so we ended up working with a frisbee. But let me show you the fun movie that we made this week in camp. With a frisbee. Oh, actually, I've got it going here. Okay, so let me show it to you. This is the actual editor version of it, but let me show it to you in the more sophisticated way. Here we go.
Mom's gonna see This is boring. Can we spread out a little bit? Go! Farther! 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 Farther!
So just a cool little video I made at camp. I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about how this kind of thing was made. I'm in the wrong screen here, but it's actually not that tricky. It all involves masking. I've got WeVideo open right now just so I can show you the clips. But to do this, it involved a little bit of masking, which is a little bit more than WeVideo can do. You can do part of this, but let me just show you the basics. So I shot one bit of footage here that was Wesley throwing, and he's a pretty good thrower to start with, but he didn't get it nearly over to where Alexander was waiting to catch it, you can see. So we basically had him, we ran the film until right about where the frisbee, so to right where the frisbee kind of reaches its peak here, and then we went to a blank piece of film. So we shot some blank film here over, and we just basically cropped it. So we got into the video properties and covered up the existing one by cropping on the left here. You see how we can cut out the video on the left, and because they're all perfectly aligned, we made sure to do this on a tripod. You can see the rest of it in the layer underneath. Just a really, really simple technique. So even though half the video, let me show you the, and you can see how the frisbee disappears when it gets to a certain point in the sky because it's reached the point where the other video is covering it up. And we did the same thing over on this side here where we had a picture, and it's really hard to see here, but there is a shot here of the Frisbee being caught. It's just so darn far away that it's a little hard to see it. There it is right there. And so that part we cut out so that only the catching part was visible, and you can't see me throwing it to Alexander there. And then the intermediate part was just, and this is the part that you can't do in WeVideo, is we just took a little cutout of the Frisbee and put it into the video editor and just moved it through the sky in a way that looked realistic until it got to the point where the other one would appear, and then substituted at that point. So really interesting little technique that's super easy to do. You can find tutorials all over the internet on how to do this kind of fun stuff. Definitely something you could do with a free video editor like DaVinci Resolve, which is absolutely the best free video out there, though it's a little bit complicated. It's just a bit much for WeVideo, though. I thought it was a really cool project, though, and I had a lot of fun putting it together. So you could do the same thing with basketballs to do an impossible basketball shot, for example, or with footballs to do an impossibly far throw. You can see that we did some other fun stuff just in the video editing as well, just by taking pictures of Olex, who was throwing the Frisbee, and then cutting away to someone who was far away. We created the illusion that somebody super far away was catching the basketball. That's a super easy video editing technique that almost anyone can do, right? It's not that complicated at all. Okay, guys, it looks like nobody in the world is watching me. I think I have... I think loyal Deck, the decoder in England, is still watching, but I don't think anyone else is here. So I think I'm going to wrap it up for the day. It was lovely teaching you, and I hope a few people watch this on the rewind. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here. So thank you for joining me, those of you who are watching this on tape. I'm going to continue to be at camp for the next couple of weeks, and right till the end of August, and every week I'm going to be bringing you a little bit of a snippet of the stuff that we learned at Computer Camp here at the RA Center in Ottawa. So thanks for joining me, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.